Aurelia.
Okay, good evening and welcome to our candidates who are here this evening and to the constituents who came out to listen and to ask questions. My name is Linda Miles and I'm a resident of Ward 1 and the administrator of the EROM Facebook group and the EROM e-newsletter. Please note that all of the candidates for mayor at Ward 1, 2, and 6 received 2 invitations for this evening's event. As you can see by some of the empty chairs behind me, some of the candidates are not here. I was asked to please let you know that Ryan Cardwell had an urgent family or urgent personal situation that he had to attend to and was planning on being here. And I've also been asked by Eric Padman to have just 30 seconds of our time before we continue. So Eric, come on up. Eric is a candidate for Ward 2.
Thanks very much for coming out, everybody. So I was very excited to get involved. I'm a resident of Ward 2. I've grown up there my whole life. And this year I decided to put my name in. Unfortunately, due to personal commitments and a growing family, I've decided to withdraw my candidacy. And so my name will still appear on the ballot, but I'm letting everybody know to please choose between the remaining 2 candidates. And I just wanted to let everybody know about that up front. But I appreciate you coming out. Thank you very much, and I encourage everyone to vote.
Okay. A couple of housekeeping items. The washrooms there are the main washrooms in the lower level, but there is also a wheelchair accessible washroom in the back corner as well. We promise to finish on time, if not early. We've asked our candidates if they'd stay back if possible to meet with you at the end and just chat one-on-one. If you'd like to submit a question from the audience, there are still forms at the front door. Please feel free to submit them. If you put your hand up, somebody will come and pick them up for you. We have a vetting team for the questions. Our vetting is very is simple. It has to be a simple question. It should be within the scope of the township. Duplication, we'll avoid duplication just from a time perspective, so we're hoping that you'll understand if your question doesn't get answered, it could have been already answered in another question. We obviously are just asking that people be respectful. That's so important. I also wanted to let you know that the candidates will get 2 minutes to introduce themselves, 2 general questions for the candidates. They were developed by a panel of volunteers, and then we will go into the audience questions after that. And I mentioned that you can still submit them. Just a little push for our e-news. There is a sign-up form at the back. You have to subscribe to our e-news. It's part of the rules of communication for Canada that you have to do that. And if you'd like to, there is a sign-up sheet there. Now, I'd like to introduce our moderator for this evening, and I'm sorry I'm standing in front of people here. Brandy, do you mind if I come over here? Okay. Margaret Profit is the Executive Director of the Simcoe County Greenbelt Coalition. With other similar-minded Simcoe County organizations, Margaret founded this group in 2015. It has since grown to a membership of 42 organizational members, representing thousands across the county. The focus of SCGC is to demand stronger protection for our natural spaces, water resources, as well as promote healthier, low-carbon communities. Her work at SCGC has to preserve our green spaces, natural heritage, and natural heritage was recognized by the Ontario Nature by awarding her the Steve Hounsell Greenway Award. Margaret, thank you very much for coming out twice this week for us. I know you have a young family, and I appreciate your time, so thank you.
Just going to do a quick sound check here. We're good? People at the back? I always hate it when people go, I can't hear you at the back. So I want to make sure. I guess I did a good enough job on Tuesday night to be welcomed back here again tonight. So thank you to EROM. Honored once again to be a part of this grassroots organization and the volunteers that are here to make tonight possible. On Tuesday night, for those of you that were here, you can testify to this. We had a respectful, informative, and enjoyable evening. Before that event, I spoke about my family history to underscore the importance of democratic gatherings such as what happened on Tuesday night as well as tonight. You see, my father was born in the Netherlands, and his small town was occupied by the Nazis when he was just 9 years old. His experience touched him for life, and he never forgot what it felt like to lose all of the freedoms that many of us take for granted. So those teachings were then passed down onto me, and gatherings such as this, where we can debate ideas, we can publicly criticize or applaud policy decisions without fear of punishment or reprisal, are a legacy of the sacrifices previous generations have made for us. So therefore, we should all be eternally grateful. And on like Tuesday, I hope tonight we can gather here respectfully, peacefully, and in gratitude that evenings like tonight are even possible. My job is pretty simple. I'm not on the hot seat, really. I'm just here to make sure everybody else is on the hot seat. I'm going to be posing the questions to the candidates and ensure that our event is as informative, enjoyable, and respectful as possible. My timekeeper, the lovely Jack, will be helping me keep the candidates on time. You might see him raise his arm. He doesn't have a twitch or anything, but that's going to be the notification to the candidates that we're getting close to the end of their 2-minute allotted time.
Very sorry about the glare.
So as Linda had said, we're going to start with introductions. Each candidate will have 2 minutes. We're going to move to questions that the candidates had received prior to tonight. There's just 2 of them. And then I will be given questions that have been vetted by the committee here and supplied by many of you that are in the audience tonight to go through. Some of those questions will be directed at particular candidates or wards, and some will be answered by all, depending on how you requested your question be asked. Again, I'll be reminding you throughout the night, but if you hear something and you want to have your question asked, or you think of a different idea, please feel free to go to the back and have your question written down and hopefully brought up to me. We'll get through as many questions as possible. Yeah, and let's just wish the candidates well tonight. Thank you for being here and for service to your community. Okay, so we're going to start with introductions. And we're going to start with our mayoral candidates, but only one here tonight. So we're going to start with Randy Greenlaw. You have 2 minutes to talk to us about who you are.
Thank you. I'd also like to thank everybody for coming out here tonight to see this great group of people who have... the mic not working?
Maybe just pull it a little closer.
Do you want me to stand up? Sorry. Sorry. Thank you. I just want to thank everyone for coming out. This is the first step to engagement, and all these candidates have come out to let you know where they stand and what they represent. And that's how we're going to move forward as a township if I'm elected mayor. I think it's important that we engage each and every one of you. My name is Randy Greenlaw, and I am here to ask you to vote me back to council as the mayor and leader of this township. As your mayor, I will provide a balanced, common sense approach to growth while protecting our quality of life, rural culture, heritage, our climate, and the environment. I will lead council that makes fact-based decisions that are community-focused and serves the best interest of this township. As an open-minded professional, I will lead council to ensure better planning, fact-based decision-making, communication, community engagement, and transparency. These things are essential to the democratic process. As mayor, I will focus our efforts on community health and safety, fiscal accountability, good planning and improved services, and last but not least, promoting resident communication and engagement. We all know that good intentions are not good enough to make a good council and mayor. We need, and you deserve, a council that is honest, fiscally responsible, professional, and leads with integrity and respect for each other and its residents. These are rapidly changing times requiring leadership with vision, a vision that provides the best and most sustainable solution, not just for today, but for generations to come. Oro-Medonte is my home, and it is your home too. And we must treat it, respect it, and protect it that way. Your agenda is my agenda, and together we will create a positive change and much, much more. So in closing, I'm asking everyone to do their part in making this change a reality. And get out and vote, and encourage all your neighbors and friends to do the same. Change starts now. So please visit my website at greenlawformayor.ca and start providing your feedback so we can hit the road running when you vote to change the leadership in this township on October 24th, 2022. Thank you.
Thank you, Randy. We're going to go to our Ward 1 candidates now for their introductions. We're going to start with you, Lori, and then go to Zoe next. So, Lori, you have 2 minutes for introductions. Oh. No, just...
Okay, there we go. Yay! My name's Lori Hutchison, and I'm honored to put my name forward as a candidate for Councillor Ward 1 in Oro-Medonte. Like you, our unique township is very special to me. I've lived here for the past 17 years with my husband, Bill. I'm a mom of 3 and a grandmother of 4, and I've had an extensive career in the financial services industry, from which I retired as the Regional Vice President of TD Canada Trust. I'm a coach, a mentor, a volunteer, and currently a student as I'm completing my Executive MBA. I'm compelled to contribute my experience and competencies learned over many years and in many ways to the decisions that your council makes on behalf of our communities. In listening to you, 4 main issues are what I would like to highlight tonight. We all accept that development is coming, but there's a great concern regarding the planning and mindfulness of that development. Environmental features such as our moraine, the tree canopy, and maintenance of our prime agricultural land require thoughtful and careful planning. Fiscal responsibility and accountability. Residents want assurance that funds are being managed appropriately and with transparency. Community safety, speeding, road safety, bylaw enforcement of nuisance short-term rentals are all common themes. But by far, the overarching comment that I have heard from you is that you want to be heard, that you want to have the ability to have a comprehensive dialogue with your elected officials. You want to be included in projects and in effective public meetings. You want it easier to get information from the township. Reduced availability to view meetings, a citizen's code of conduct, and the elimination of internet voting are just a few examples of why residents feel this way. To effectively address these 4 issues, we need a highly effective governing body, one which exhibits effectiveness, integrity, and competence. A vision, one which values your desire for our community's future. A vision of our future, the appreciation of the power of a team, the understanding, acceptance, and respect for the diversity of thought, idea, and experiences are the foundation of how we will build the future of Oro-Medonte. Thank you.
Thanks, Lori. See, I don't have the real hard job. Mike has to do all the,
That's why, yes.
all the,
Sorry, Lily. Thank you.
mics and everything else, so we're going to just take a little bit here to rearrange, I think.
You want her here?
So, yeah, I'm not going to sing the musical chairs. He just asked me if I'm going to do that. No.
You might want
I
to
want
sit
people to
there.
stay for the rest of the meeting.
Yeah, it's just the post, so, yeah.
Okay.
Nobody puts baby in the corner.
Nobody.
How we doing, Zoe? You got all comfortable there?
Yes, I was
Okay.
trying to find you. Where's the voice
So
coming from?
just watch for Jack. If you see him put his hand up, as a reminder, it's just a signal for the candidates. He's going to put his hand up and down just so that they know their time is drawing near. All right, Zoe, you have 2 minutes when you get comfortable there to introduce yourself.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Zoe Rowe Watson.
There you go.
And I'm very proud to tell you that for 15 years, I have lived here in Ward 1, Oro-Medonte. Who else is proud to be a part and live in Oro-Medonte here tonight? Awesome. I am passionate about the area, the community, and the diversity of the people who live here with me. My passion is reflected through my extensive outreaching and volunteering in our ward. Our ward needs your voice, your ideas, and your vote. I am unique. I do not follow. I don't copy anyone. I listen, I learn, and I step up. My career highlights include being a flight attendant and health and safety officer with Air Canada. I was an owner and an operator of a fly-in fishing lodge in Northern Ontario, and I was a trusted financial advisor with Sun Life Financial. What is my platform? As your counselor, I will make unbiased decisions, and I will listen and consider all residents. I will respect and enhance the nature of Oro-Medonte, and I will strive to work collaboratively with all councillors, township staff, and residents. I believe my role as a good councillor is to serve and represent you with transparency and integrity in every interaction. My commitment to you is simple. I will always listen, and I will always be inclusive, and I will always do what is best for our community. Thank you very much for inviting me here this evening.
Thank you, Zoe. We're going to go that way now. We're going to start with John Bard, who is our Ward 2 candidate. And you want to do a sound check?
Are you sure you're going to be next? Hello, is there? Okay. Thank you. Okay, thank you everybody for putting on this event and everybody who came out to take the time to listen to what we have to say. Good evening, I'm John Bard and I'm running for council in Ward 2. I've been happily married to Rosalie for 24 years. We have 2 teenage children of which we are very proud. We feel very lucky that we've been able to be the 4th generation of Bards to raise our family on the farm. I've lived on the farm for most of my life. I grew up playing outside and following my dad around the farm. When I was old enough to help, I did. Milking cows, haying, tending to livestock instilled a sense of responsibility and hard work in me at a young age. I wouldn't trade those early life lessons and experiences for anything. Growing up on the farm in Oro-Medonte helped me develop a love for the outdoors. I still love being outside, kayaking on Bass Lake, mountain biking on the Oro Moraine, skiing at Mount St. Louis, and snowshoeing around the farm are some of my favorite activities. I have a dog that likes to be walked 3 times a day, rain or shine, hot or minus 35 and blowing snow. I think it is important to take time to connect with nature each day, and I feel fortunate that I get to experience the gradual change in seasons while on these daily walks. I'm guessing that many of you are here this evening because you love the beautiful forests, lakes, and farms in Oro-Medonte, and like me, you are wanting these places to be the same, if not better, for future generations. I've decided to run for council so that I can help make this happen. This cannot be done alone. We need to work together. I'm a high school teacher in Orillia. I have met many Oro-Medonte families throughout my career. I know the people in this community have valuable insight into what needs to be done to make Oro-Medonte better. I think it is important to seek out and listen to different points of view when making decisions that will affect the future of Oro-Medonte. If elected, I promise to do just that. Thank you.
Thank you, John. We'll go to our Ward 6 candidates, starting with Michaela Biermann and then followed by Robert Young.
Good evening, everyone. I would like to thank Engaging Residents of Oro-Medonte for organizing this event, and in particular, Linda Miles for the time she's taken to communicate with all of us candidates, but also for providing this platform to share with residents in the community. Second, I would really like to thank each of you for taking the time out of your evening to be here, to listen, to ask questions, and to be engaged in this process with us. My name is Michaela Biermann, and I am running for councillor in Ward 6. Growing up in Simcoe County, it was always my dream to live in Oro-Medonte. After finally moving here, my family and I encountered a compelling and supportive community. I value the charm and friendliness of local businesses, access to nature and recreation, and the opportunity to get involved in community initiatives. I believe that together we can ensure that Oro-Medonte continues to offer sustainable and exciting opportunities for the next generation through creating connection, building community, and fostering collaboration. As a mother, I understand the importance of community, and I will advocate for family-oriented needs like safe driving in residential areas. As a small business owner, I understand the value of local businesses and the positive contribution that they make to the community. As an anti-human trafficking advocate, I have listened empathetically and cared for people who have different backgrounds and life experiences than my own. As an engaged community member, I've experienced working with government at the municipal, provincial, and federal levels. As a researcher, I have experience representing diverse views without bias and with ethical integrity. My experiences in leadership, community engagement, and my passion would make me a strong voice and a dedicated representative for Ward 6. I care about this community, I care about each resident who lives here, and I care about you. It would be an honor to be elected and serve you as the councillor for Ward 6. Thank you.
All right. Whoop. Doesn't like me all of a sudden. Robert, the mic is yours.
Okay, thank you. Can you hear me okay? How about now? Too loud? As you know, my name is Robert Young, and I have lived in Oro-Medonte on a farm for the last 20 years with my two sons, who are now grown, good men, on Ingram Road. And where exactly I'm located, when I look over the treetops at the back of my farm, the ski hills are right there. So that's where I am. Just to give you a brief, and I say a brief, I've had many different careers by my choice, not theirs, in my occupations. And I started my career as a police officer with the OPP, and I stayed there for 2 years, and went to Hamilton Police for 14 years, various different agencies, intelligence and crime prevention, et cetera, et cetera. And I just felt I needed another change. Intellectual change, and I went to the provincial government. I started out there with the Ontario Human Rights Commission for 10 years as an investigator, then as a manager, then as a provincial mediator resolving human rights complaints. And then I took another challenge. I decided to second to the Office of Police Complaints Commissioner, where I investigated complaints against the police. I was there for 18 months, and then I went back to the commission. And then I seconded again to the Independent Investigation Unit, which is with the Ministry of Corrections, Solicitor General of Corrections. The previous one, the Police Complaints Commissioner, is with the Attorney General's office. Once I went back to the commission, I decided I needed another challenge. So I went to the office of the Fire Marshal as an investigator. Fire Marshal is what most people refer to it as. And I was there for 5 years, and I retired from the provincial government as a fire marshal. And then I decided I needed to do something else. So I was employed with Aviva Insurance Company as a special investigation, out of a special investigation unit as an investigator investigating potential frauds. So all these positions that I've held for the last 35 years dealt with people face to face, which I enjoy dealing with people. I've done it for 35 years, and I still have that inner desire to help people. This is part and part of the way I was raised by my mother and father, to help people. And it's still with me. It's an innate part of me now. And I expect to continue to do it if I'm elected councillor for Ward 6.
Thank you, Robert. Yep. No, sorry, someone was going to have to get it first, and unfortunately it was you.
I hate to cut off a police officer, but... Sorry, officer, but...
Sorry, officer.
That wraps up our first part, which was the introductions. There's no quizzes afterwards, so don't worry about that if you didn't catch all of it. But thank you, candidates, for those introductions. The next part is there are 2 questions that the candidates had ahead of time. It's the same question for everybody. The only difference is a little bit for Mr. Greenlaw, because the part of the question is about what you actually did as your record on council. The others get to speak more vision and what they would do, but we're asking Mr. Greenlaw, because he has experience on council, to include some of his council work. So the very first question is, as a potential future member of council, what is one of your main priorities, and what will you do to support it? We're going to start with Robert. To make up for it that we cut you off here. We're going to start with you. All candidates will have 2 minutes. I'll do the ward councillors first, and then we'll finish with Randy for that question. Okay, so Robert, you have 2 minutes to talk about your main priority and what you would do to support it.
I'll speak fast. Listen, I don't know how many of you people know what's happening or going to be happening to the Coldwater River shortly. It's on the board to be done, what the plans are for the Coldwater River. And I was surprised when I went around beginning to get endorsements for my candidacy, how many people didn't know. And one of 19 people knew what was happening. I'll be brief as quick as I can, but all those housing developments that are going up along Horseshoe Valley Corridor there, they're going to be running a pipe along Horseshoe Valley Corridor down the 6th line to be dumping sewage into the Coldwater River. They call it treated water. It's not treated water. It's treated sewage is what it is. And my concern, there's opposition to it, of course, locally here. Absolutely. People, it's going to be a dead river, okay? It's going to be turned into a sewer. And what the future plans are, it's running the pipe from this area here from Craighurst. And that's going to be additional sewage emptied into the Coldwater River. And my concern is that, besides that, of it in itself, is additional subdivisions that are put along Horseshoe Valley Corridor are going to be hooked up to this. So that river can only take so much in terms of assimilating human sewage or effluent into the water. And I can tell you, the water, that river runs through my farm, and that's not why I'm one generation. We're talking about future generations of people here in Oro-Medonte. That I can tell you firsthand, 20 years living there, that at times that river is very, very low. In fact, to the point that those sandbars within it are exposed. Okay, so they've done studies, not necessarily, or not on the river itself, subsequent other adjoining rivers, sort of thing. So. You can imagine what's going to happen. So obviously I'm going to be fighting that, and there's going to be a bit of a groundswell, I would expect. You people know about it. We're talking about future generations here that I can envision, a father, grandfather standing on the banks of that river one day and saying, I remember when, the salmon used to come up here and spawn, the trout used to come up here and spawn. So that's what's happening. That's one of my main concerns. Okay? Thank you.
You just beat Jack's arm there. He was just on his way up there, so you're good. You're good. All right, Michaela, you have 2 minutes.
My platform is built around 3 words: community, connection, and collaboration. The one priority I would like to highlight for you this evening is collaboration. Listening actively to understand the priorities of Ward 6 residents is vital. If elected as councillor, I will represent you. And in order to represent you, I need to know you, I need to learn and listen to you and stay in communication with you, not only just during this campaign period, but all 4 years if elected as an official. I have already been modeling this throughout the campaign by asking residents intentional questions and writing down their responses. If elected, I will create a summary of all the responses received through consultations with residents and local businesses to highlight the themes and priorities that are outlined by constituents. As a researcher, I have experience in thematic analysis, and I have the background necessary to fulfill this commitment. For example, after knocking on 30% of the doors in our ward to date, the main theme that I've heard from folks is road safety and maintenance. If elected, I would advocate for and work with town staff to address these concerns. Further, I'm committed to creating opportunities to foster collaboration for the next 4 years. This includes hosting town halls to listen to you in person, developing surveys and facilitating consultations to get your feedback on diverse key issues, as well as providing ongoing and accessible updates. Updates would be in formats such as e-newsletters, print newsletters, and door-to-door conversations. I have past experience organizing and implementing events such as town halls and consultations. I've created and delivered newsletter communication, and I've developed and collected responses to survey. As demonstrated by these efforts I have made to foster collaboration in other avenues in my past, I am capable and confident that I can deliver this priority with excellence. On the campaign trail, I have heard from residents that in their own words, we feel like the forgotten North. Some residents have never met their elected official or had a councillor knock on their door. I will ensure that every resident hears from me and has the opportunity to share their priorities with me, because your voice matters, and I believe that together we can do great things in Oro-Medonte. Thank you.
Thanks, Michaela. Some of you may or may not know Jack used to be a former NHL player, and on Tuesday he said he was going to bring his hockey stick, but I don't think you have to. I don't think you have to do that tonight. Everyone seems intimidated enough, so that's good. Moving on to Ward 2, Mr. Bard, you have 2 minutes.
Right. Seems to be sort of a common theme here, but as a future member of council, my main priority will be to seek input from residents and listen. My fellow Ward 2 residents are the people that are impacted the most by decisions that are made by council and staff regarding the operations and developments in Ward 2. Residents in Ward 2 should be listened to when these changes are being discussed. My neighbors in Ward 2 will bring a better understanding of the potential impacts of proposed changes to the planning table, as they are the ones that know most how these changes will impact their lives and the lives of those around them. For example, many residents are feeling frustrated with the lack of input and consultation with the traffic calming measures that were recently installed on Line 15 North. I use Line 15 regularly to get to and from West Aurelia Sports Complex many times a week. I've seen many aggressive drivers and close calls on my travels. The safety of people is paramount. Something needed to be done for the safety of Line 15 residents and visitors to the beach area. This is something that we can all agree on. However, was this the best solution? Who was involved in the consultations? Who has been impacted by the recent changes? I believe it is best, both economically and emotionally, to do things right the first time. It is easiest to do things right if you are working with the best information available to you before making decisions. I believe that the residents that will be impacted the most will bring the most comprehensive and insightful information regarding the proposed change. My main priority as a potential future member of council will be to seek input from residents and listen.
Thank you, John. We'll go down to our Ward 1 candidates. I guess, Zoe, we'll start with you because the mic's there close to you. Okay. And then we'll go to Lori, if that's okay.
Well, thank heavens, because I think there is definitely a common factor here this evening with the communication and opening up communication between the residents. of Ward 1 and with council. I believe that not only the communication, but ongoing communication and being able to reach out to the community and ask questions and get answers and get the feedback from the residents. I think it's very important for me to come out to meet with groups and find out what is important to those groups and take that information along with the information from the residents. And as I've been door knocking, I have found that there are many individuals in the area that they feel that they haven't been heard, and they have some very wonderful insight on some significant issues in the ward. I was quite impressed and happy as I've been knocking on the doors when I ask people what are your issues, that the general population of Ward 1 is very happy here. We have a wonderful ward where we live. We have a wonderful area. But I think moving forward, it's just very important to keep those lines of communication open. I think it's very important to take surveys. I've explored with the township the opportunity to use customer secure forms and analytics. Something very similar to like a Survey Monkey, but it would be very secure. And I think that that's a great way of receiving continued feedback from the community and using that information to make unbiased decisions. I think it's also very important to build a bridge in our community and have a strong rapport with the council, the township staff, and I think that their knowledge is invaluable.
Thank you. Okay, Lori, you have 2 minutes.
Thank you. Can you hear me? Okay. I don't trust these mics.
We've had some technical difficulties this evening.
So the main issue, this is a really interesting question for me because we're all talking about the same issues. When I speak with people in Ward 1, they do have concerns. I've already addressed those. They're concerned about development, they're concerned about our safety in our community, they're concerned about fiscal responsibility of the township, and their greatest concern is that they're not heard. But in order to affect change on any of those issues, we need to have a council that is functioning as a business unit. We need to have an effective council because it's the body that ultimately makes the decisions on our behalf. And if it's not working as an effective governance body, these issues don't get dealt with in an expedited manner, in a timely manner, in the way that we need to have them dealt with today. We need a council where there's a climate of trust, openness, mutual respect, the ability to work as a team. A council who puts the constituents ahead of their own personal interests or egos. I've got extensive experience in participating in and managing people and teams. I understand dynamics. I'm a fair and effective listener and communicator. I appreciate diversity and I value dynamics in a group. I'm self-aware and I'm able to admit when I make a mistake and I own it. I'm able to function in a professional manner in situations where it's difficult. And I would like to be able to sit at the council table and demonstrate those capabilities to the rest of the team. Thank you.
Okay, having heard from all our ward candidates, we're going to turn to our only mayoral candidate here tonight, Mr. Randy Greenlaw, and 2 minutes to talk about your priority and what you will do and what you have done.
Okay, well, I'm going to kind of splice this up. So what I think we need to do moving forward better is we need to make better decisions. We need to fully understand the issues before we before making the final decision. We need to make our decisions on relevant facts that lead us to sustainable solutions, and our objectives must be realistic. This will help us reduce legal costs, Ontario Land Tribunal hearings, and avoid unnecessary impacts on our community. Now, what I have been tasked with predominantly over the first term of council was short-term rentals was a major issue. And the mayor said that since it's such a big issue in your area, would you take the lead? I was asked in December by the mayor to head up this, and I engaged and met with residents of short-term rental operators to have a full understanding of the issues across the township. I also reviewed the Planning Act, zoning bylaws, and other related documents. And upon review, I updated the mayor on February 14th, 2019, and explained to him that this was clearly a non-permitted use, which by our bylaws under section 3.1 makes them all prohibited. In July 2019, I asked for a motion to be considered to have the municipal bylaws simply to implement our existing bylaws as articulated. As all my efforts were to inform and identify with council and staff and the public as to our best path forward to a sustainable solution. Despite my recommendations, others brought forward an amendment to a definition which was overruled by the Ontario Land Tribunal. Since the OLT decision, municipal bylaw is now doing what I asked for in 2019, and that's simply to implement our bylaws as articulated, and they are. So moving forward, I would suggest we simply implement our bylaws for the next 12 months. At that time, we will review it and see if any alteration needs to be made. And I think Jack has a question.
No comment.
I took notes, Jack. Don't worry, if you've got questions, we can...
Just give it out.
Okay, so that was our first pre-selected question. The second one is dealing with the Oro-Moraine. I feel like there's a bit of feedback here, so I'm going to... Okay, is that better? Can everybody still hear me? Okay, again, all of the candidates are going to be answering this question, and we're going to start with our mayoral candidate, Randy, and then I will be posing it to the candidates from the wards afterwards. The question is, it is a fact that the Oro-Moraine is the principal source of drinking water for 90% of Oro-Medonte, and that much of the current and planned development is in fact located on the moraine. As a potential future member of council, what will you do to minimize the environmental impact of the current and future developments on the Oro-Moraine? And just as a reminder to our timekeeper and our candidates as well as the audience, this is also for 2 minutes. All right, Mr. Greenlaw?
Do you have any questions? Hello?
I'll just make him raise his hand.
You there? Okay. Do you have any questions up front? Jack will answer them now. I've been involved over the course of my 4 years on council and as councillor in voting against those developments that are too intense, so that would impact the natural environment and character of our beautiful Oro-Medonte communities. An example of this was the voting against the doubling of Eagles Rest development from 100 lots to over 200 lots. That will consume much of the more groundwater, allowing hundreds of more people and impacting the natural character of this area. I have supported throughout my term to fully consider and avoid such negative impacts. We need to identify where the borders of the Oro-Moraine are and to ensure they are protected, particularly in the groundwater below. This matter has come up a number of times through this term of council, and most recently at the latest official plan review, where questions about about there being sufficient capacity of the groundwater in the Oro Moraine needs to be determined before more significant development is approved by this council. I totally agree with the need for this protection.
Thank you. Thank you, Randy. To switch it all up, I'm going to start with our Ward 2 candidate, John Bard, to have 2 minutes to talk about how you would protect the Oro Moraine.
First of all, to protect the Oro Moraine, I think it would be very wise to have conversations with the residents groups and residents that have been identifying the need for awareness to preserve this very valuable resource for decades now. They have the history and knowledge of the situation, and they should be consulted in any planning decisions. I would love to preserve the Oro Moraine exactly as it is, but I recognize that we can't close the door on development. However, current developments can and should be more environmentally friendly than the developments were at the time of the early studies on the Oro Moraine. More environmentally friendly developments must be employed. I would personally like to see smaller building footprints with less impermeable surfaces for any developments on the Oro Moraine. That includes roads. I would also like to see a portion of new development sites preserved in their natural state, preferably undisturbed. This would protect the microbial ecosystems that are essential for healthy soils and the vegetation that are going to help recharge the aquifers. If these areas must be disturbed during construction, I would like to see a portion of the new development sites dedicated to rewilding, which I think many parts of our township should be. I envision developments that exist with nature, not carved out of nature. I think that we need to work with developers on ways to reduce the impacts on the Oro Moraine. Environmentally friendly builds could receive incentives to recognize their commitments to preserving the environment. Developers bring revenue essential to the operations of the township. However, we must not overlook that it is the environment we are building on that is driving the demand for these developments in this valuable resource that we have here. We must take a precautionary approach to make sure that future developments do not harm what has attracted development here in the first place.
Thank you, John. We're going to go to our Ward 6 candidates next, starting with Michaela, and then followed up by Robert.
Protecting agricultural land, green space, and our water are vital to food security, caring for wildlife, maintaining air quality, farmers' livelihood, and the local economy. I am committed to environmental protection and promoting sustainability. To demonstrate my commitment to this over past years, I would like to highlight that I previously participated on the York University President's Sustainability Council, and I contributed to the York University Sustainability Strategy. If elected, I am dedicated to listening, learning, and working with active groups in the community who are focused on environmental protection. I will ensure that consultation with stakeholders, experts, and researchers takes place before decisions are made related to development. As a potential future member of council, I will seek input and research best practices to ensure that sustainability is promoted and water is protected in our community. To protect the drinking water in our community, I would look into environmental plans that are currently enacted in other communities. For example, Ontario has approved the South George and Bay Lake Simcoe Source Protection Plan, which includes actions such as providing information to residents on best practices for maintaining septic systems, livestock grazing and pasturing areas, handling and storage of salt or fuel, and applying and storing pesticides, manure, or other fertilizers, as well as producing and placing road signs to identify drinking water protection zones. Protecting water is part of the government's economic plan for Ontario. I have experience advocating with the provincial government and have the experience necessary to work with different levels of government on this priority. I am dedicated to advocating for water protection in our community. Thank you.
Got the mic there, Robert?
Thank you.
All right.
I can't talk as fast as Michaela. I'd stutter if I started talking as fast as you. But anyways, getting back to the issue here, I would believe that the housing development on the Moraine, of course, should slow down. I believe it's a matter of zoning. I'm very much aware of the fact it's been designated a settlement area along Horseshoe Valley Road. But again, I come back to the issue of zoning. I just want to mention something to you. I don't know how many of you people are aware, but when I found this out, I was just shaking my head, not unlike what they have plans for the developers who don't live here in the area, but make a profit by the building housing developments. But on the 9th line, south of Horseshoe Valley Road, there are pumping stations down there that pump the pure water from aquifers on the moraine up here in Oro-Medonte. And my understanding, it's a provincial matter. Water taken from the groundwater or from the ground is a provincial matter. Oro-Medonte does not have any say in it. My understanding further to that is that they're charged nothing or a minimal rate, and I just find that somewhat outrageous. And I know that somebody has FOI'd or talked to the ministry attempting to get documents or to determine and find out just how much they take out on a daily basis, and they were got the runaround and never did get the answers to those questions. So it's something that we should all be aware of. We're talking about saving the water in the Oro Moraine and preserving it for us and future generations, certainly. And again, I find it incredible that we don't know exactly, but if you ever drive along Horseshoe Valley Road, I'm sure you do, you'll see those big stainless steel trucks coming out of the 9th line onto Horseshoe Valley Road. And that's exactly what they're doing, taking water from our area, from our reservoirs, and I don't know where the hell they're taking it. Bottling probably and making a profit on it. That's the only thing I can see. But in my view, that certainly has to be explored to find out those answers to those questions as we all should know. You know, again, we're talking about future generations, and hi, Jack. Okay. Finished.
Poor Jack, he's at a disadvantage. He's the only one that doesn't have a microphone to defend himself. So I feel like I have to defend you here.
My shoulder's getting sore.
It's all the checking, the body checking you did your whole life. Okay, we're going to move to our Ward 1 here candidates, and we're going to start with Lori and then follow up with Zoe, if that's okay.
Sure. So with regard to the moraine, I think we all recognize that it is a primary source of drinking water for us, and it is of great importance to us today, but certainly for the future as well. The moraine is precious, and it needs to be protected. Development on the moraine has been taking place as we move forward. I feel we need a much greater understanding of the aquifer capacity that we have, and it is affected by the increased draw from more developments. I heard a term the other day, you can only put so many straws in. To say there's plenty of water down there is just not acceptable. That may be the case today, but we need to understand what the impact of continued development will hold for the future of our aquifers. The clearing of our tree canopy disrupts the filtration of water back into the aquifer, which can impact the quality of our water. We have some of the finest water in the world today, but how is that going to look in the future? Just a week ago, there was an extensive incursion of water and silt into a provincially significant wetland in the development that's going in near Sugarbush called Forest Heights. That's an example of current development that's going on that caused an environmental problem. This isn't going to stop unless we really hit pause, figure out how we are going to develop mindfully and protect our moraine. We need to have a greater understanding, oversight, and control of the development on our moraine. We need better mapping on the boundaries and understand where that is. We need to consult and take direction from science, and we need to put the moraine back into our official plan as a singular entity.
I believe that we need to fully respect the complexity and the magnitude of the moraine. I do agree with protecting the moraine, and I do believe that we need to enforce our conservation authorities. I do believe that there are a number of people that have done a lot of research on the marine, and I think it's very important for me to meet with them and get a lot of, I think knowledge would be imperative here. The moraine was created basically back in the Ice Age, and I think it requires it has gained our respect, and we need to protect it. It's very important. It covers 141 square kilometers, and there are water tables in this area of up to 350 feet, and that's a pretty significant water filtration, natural water filtration system. Right here in Ward 1, we have wells to people's homes that are testing at a 0.0 bacteria. So the moraine is obviously working and doing a great job. I think it's very important to continue on with the testing of and conducting groundwater and quality and quantity studies. And within those studies, having the best locations for developments. So if we can incorporate the developments being within these areas where there are the 350 feet of water table provided, then that would elevate the opportunity for development. Within those development areas, I think it would be very pertinent to further protect the moraine by stipulating environmental protection in regards to the septic and sewer. If the development was being built in clay, you would definitely need to enhance the environmental protection as opposed to those that were being built in sand.
Okay, so that finishes the introductions as well as the preset questions. And candidates, feel free to take a drink here. I'm just going to, well, just water. We're just going to go over some audience questions here. Just give me a second to confirm. You're good there? Okay, so this is the surprise part of the evening for me and the candidates, because I don't know what question it's going to be. I don't know who it's to, and we'll just... Sure. Afterwards, only once you talk to his agent.
Sorry, Margaret. I just wanted to clarify with everyone here tonight that we had a vetting team, and the only reason we were vetting was to make sure that the questions were within the scope that we had prearranged. We've got a lot of really great questions. We're going to try our very, very best to get all of them answered by the end of the evening. If we don't, then we will try to get answers for you and submit them either through the e-news or get them to you personally, okay? So if your question didn't get answered, come up to me afterwards and let me know how I can reach you. Thank you very much.
And I think some of the candidates have agreed that if we end a little early, that you could ask them directly yourself as well. So
there was two similar questions, so we're just working into one.
Okay, this is where I get to be creative because I have two different questions I have to make into one here. Okay, this is going to be for all candidates, and this is regarding short-term rentals. Basically, what is your position on short-term rentals in residential areas? We will start with Zoe at that end, if you don't mind, and we'll go along this way. And again, 2 minutes, candidates, for this answer. So the question is about short-term rentals and candidates' positions on them.
Short-term rentals, it's definitely an issue that has been brought up as I've been door knocking on many homes. It is a topic that when I was starting out to door knock, I thought the response that I would have received was different from that I did receive. I have gone out to some meetings, the Good Neighbors meeting that was very informative about some group support in short-term rentals. And I would have to say that so far I've had a very response of pros and cons. There are definitely a group within our community that do not want short-term rentals, but there is also a large percentage of individuals that are in favor of having short-term rentals. And I feel as a good counselor that it is my job to listen to everyone, and I think that this is a perfect opportunity to use the type of survey monkey that I had referred to earlier, where we present 3 options to the ward, and the people choose which is the choice, the percentage of yes, no, or undetermined. I don't think anybody wants to have a group of 16 to 20 people move in for the weekend or the week next to them. I don't think that is acceptable to anyone. I believe that there are bylaws in place right now, and we have to follow the bylaws. And I think it will be up to council to review the bylaws and come up with some kind of guideline. And I think it would be amazing for other municipalities to refer to Oro-Medonte and say, they got it right, let's follow their guidelines.
Thank you, Zoe. Okay, Lori, short-term rentals.
Well, we have a bylaw, we have it right. That is, short-term rentals are illegal in residential areas. They've been operating illegally. They've been allowed to operate illegally by no control by bylaw officers. This has started to change, as Randy alluded to, and I support keeping the bylaw as it is.
Share a mic with Lori.
You're really switching it up.
I know, well, you got to keep you guys on your toes.
Thank you. I've actually spent 4 years very heavily engaged in this, and I will tell you that it has been concluded by multiple OLTs in case law. This is a commercial use for profit. They are not permitted. They're not a permitted use in accordance to our zoning bylaws in residential zones. There are 2 zones that they are permitted in. That's village commercial resort and bed and breakfast. Therefore, I think after 4 years and a lot of money being spent, we're returning back to what I suggested and asked to come forward in 2019. Implement our bylaws. I think the best route now is implement them because bylaw is actually charging under the land use infraction. And I say we should let it stay that way for 12 months, review it before we amend anything, because unfortunately what we did before is we amended something before we tested it, and that doesn't make scientific sense. We didn't build the airplane by amending it and never testing it, or it never would have got off the ground. So I think we've been through this. It's been long and painful for many people, and moving forward, I hope we can bring relief to the residents of this township.
Thank you, Randy. We're going to go with John, Michaela, and then Robert for this question.
So my campaign's a little slow to get started. I apologize. So at this point, with the residents that I've talked to, it's been very clear to me that these aren't people renting their cottage to family and friends. And these are commercial operations that are in residential areas. And we have bylaws in place that we need to enforce. And I'm happy to hear that that has started to pick up. So I will continue to seek feedback, but at this point, my stance is that they are illegal and that we should enforce the bylaws. And I like the 12-month moratorium and reevaluate at that point.
Well, I had created a list of potential topics and prepared answers, and this was one of them based on the other candidate meeting that happened on Tuesday. So I hope you will allow me to read a couple of quotes that I researched regarding the issue of short-term rentals. According to the Government of Ontario's Home Sharing Guide, and I quote, "In Ontario, home sharing is one of the fastest growing sectors in the sharing economy. The growth of home sharing in Ontario and around the world has been driven by consumers looking for greater choices, flexibility, and lower costs, and the opportunity to earn extra income for hosts. As municipalities addressed home sharing, they often seek to find a balance between encouraging its growth to promote economic development and placing limits on the scope of activity to preserve the character of local communities. Findings from literature on home sharing and public opinion research from Ontario in 2016 show support for home sharing while also acknowledging there's a role for governments to play in regulating the sector," end quote. Currently, various groups and individuals in Oro-Medonte have outlined their concern for disruptive short-term rentals. And as folks have mentioned, the current bylaw in place is that they are illegal. Concerns have included community safety, not respecting communal property, and noise. The province has adopted regulatory modernization principles when designing regulations to reduce burden on business. Municipalities could consider these principles when designing home sharing regulations. While I won't go into depth of each of these principles, I believe that further research and more widespread consultation is needed before making a decision on the exact way forward. A balanced approach is needed to undertake the challenges, but also the opportunities presented by short-term rentals. If elected, I am dedicated to analyzing, comparing, and researching best practices from across different municipalities, in addition to listening to residents to propose a new and innovative approach to address this challenge. Further, I will promote community safety and ensure that the well-being of residents is prioritized in decision-making. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Robert Young. Listen, I have had a sign on the front lawn of my place, my farm, for the last 2 years. And what that sign says, nobody wants to live next door to a disrupted STR. Thank you. I replaced it. It was there all winter, sticking to the snowbank, but I've now replaced it to provide it with one. Listen, as has been said here, the bylaw has been in place since 1997 that it is illegal to operate a business in residential areas. Full stop. It's illegal. Simple as that. And there's been before the court, and somebody's been dragging their ass on it. And I think you just have to look to the leader of the council for why he's doing it. You rarely have to question why. Why is this being done? Why has he proposed licensing and a number of other things with it? But I know I've been in constant contact with, not constant, but in contact with the people that live down on Lake Shore, just as a former police officer, and what can I do about, what can we do about it? And I told them, call the police, of course, and report the OPP. There's bylaw in place, but it seems that there's been a lack of enforcement last number of years on it. And again, you have to question why. Where is that direction coming from? And you don't have to be too bright to understand where it's coming from, in my estimation and in my view. But I've told them to call the police, the OPP, and I'll tell you what, to shut the parties down. Shut them down. I tell you what we used to do in Hamilton as a former police officer is that we'd go there, and noisy party complaint, okay. You go back a second time, we shut the party down, kicked everybody out, ordered everybody out, the party's over, And everybody got mouthy upon leaving. They were finding themselves in the back of a cruiser very, very fast. So that's what we did. We shut the places down. But there seems to be a hesitation or reluctance on the part of the bylaw enforcement officers up here. And I suggested to them, if you can believe this, when the parties get rocking, everybody's got a few drinks in them after 11 o'clock or so, there's no bylaw enforcement work. And I suggested that they split their shifts, work an 8 to 4, whatever it is, to when the parties are rocking, and go in there and charge the owners and find out who's in charge of it and charge that person. So that's my view on STRs, and I'm very, you can see very passionate about it. I understand how those people down there must experience on a regular basis with a disruptive party next door, party place, 15, 16, 20 people, and these were rocking during the sorry, Jen. Okay, yeah. Good. Yeah. Do I go?
You need to play the music.
Yeah, well, my mic was off too, so I couldn't do anything. But I think you were just trying to see how long he could hold his arm up there. Testing your endurance, Jack. Tuesday was easy. That was a cakewalk. You got your work cut out for you today. Thank you. You should have brought your hockey. It shouldn't have been Tuesday. It was just tonight you should have brought it. Thank you for that, Robert. Okay, we're going to another audience question. And if the crowd will humor me, there's a little bit of a preamble here. There is a question at the end, but there's some information that's being given first. Okay, so the question, which is prefaced by a few comments, is: it is common to believe that municipally elected officials are accountable to violence and harassment in the workplace policies. However, this is not the case. In addition, the maximum consequence for egregious acts of harassment is a 3-month suspension without pay. A bill called Stopping Harassment and Abuse by Local Leaders Act was brought forward to introduce provincial legislation that would deter municipal councillors and board members from engaging in harassment by holding them to account for their actions, but it was not passed before the provincial election. So here is your question. It has since had to be reintroduced as Bill 5. Do you support this bill? And if elected, what would you do to support it? So this is the Stopping Harassment and Abuse by Local Leaders Act. The question, just to condense it for you, is would you support this bill? And if you were elected, what would you do to support it? We are going to start with our mayoral candidate, Randy, and then I will mix it up with the wards. I'll keep you on your feet. All righty, so again, it's 2 minutes for this question.
Okay. Well, I think the challenge with it, I think everyone needs to be respectful to one another at the end of the day, and that goes 2 ways. I think council and government officials need to be respectful and conscientious of the public, and I think the public also needs to be respectful to the council. Everyone has different levels of tolerance, and some people take things very personal and emotionally. Me, I personally don't feel anyone has treated me inappropriately from the public perspective. Sometimes they're very frustrated, and I understand, because we don't resolve things as quickly as we would like to. And I understand why people get emotional and have the odd outburst, but if you talk to them and listen, you can usually diffuse the matter and have a logical conversation. So I would support it, but I would have to read it thoroughly to understand if I would support the bill.
Okay, thank you. We're going to start with John, actually, and then we'll go to Lori, Zoe, and then Robert and Michaela will finish it. Okay, so it's about Bill 5, the Stop Harassment and Abuse by Local Leaders. Do you support the bill? And if you do, what would you do to support it if elected?
Frankly, I'm kind of shocked this even came up. So I was always brought to be respectful of other people. And I think a lot of the problems that we are seeing here in the township is about people not respecting each other, whether it's speeding or having a party next door to a cottage. Anyway, I'm kind of, I guess, off topic. So I would say that I would support it in principle, but much like Randy, I would have to read it properly to understand it, because it's I guess, to put things in perspective, you practice respect. I'm an educator. I spend my day with teenagers for the last 23 years, and if I took things personally, I probably couldn't say that I was an educator for the last 23 years. So, sorry. So, to answer the question, I support it, but would need to read it to make sure that I'm grasping what's being asked here.
Okay, Lori, Zoe, then Robert and Michaela.
Great. Thank you. I'm not familiar with this bill either, and as said before, it would be something I'd need to make myself familiar with before agreeing or not agreeing to it. But the topic of harassment and abuse is also something that it's difficult to define, because people have different assumptions of what harassment and abuse is. So that would be defined, I would think, within the bill. But it does come down to conduct in the workplace and conduct with the public, and what is acceptable and what is not. And that's not so broad a range. And, anything, if it makes sense and it's clear, it would be something that I would support. Absolutely. I mean, I had a 30-year career in workplace harassment and workplace respect were a big aspect of the type of work that I did. So absolutely, it would be something I would look seriously at.
Thank you.
I too am not familiar with Bill 5, but I would like to read it before I would agree or disagree with it. If it's based on the premise of workplace harassment, then I would say that that is intolerant. And in my experience with negotiating with health and safety, with management and flight attendants or staff, it was imperative that we remain respectful to one another, and we would have discussions, and we would agree to disagree, but maintain our professionalism. And we don't always have to agree, but we always have to remain respectful. So for me, harassment and abuse is intolerable within council or in a workplace.
Thank you. Robert, don't test Jack this time, okay?
Just cut me off, okay? Don't bother raising your arm, Jack. I can't see it. Listen, as I mentioned earlier, you're very familiar with where I worked for 10 years, the Ontario Human Rights Commission, so I'm very familiar with harassment in the workplace, what constitutes sexual harassment and bullying, and we've seen that on, certainly seen that on council. I have a 36-page report I did, and it'll be on my website on Monday. It speaks to why council eliminated internet and telephone voting this year. Just to brief through it very, very quickly, I filed 2 complaints with the Ontario Human Rights Commission. I used to draft complaints with the Ontario Human Rights Commission and investigated, analyzed evidence, and then if the evidence supported a board of inquiry, I recommended a board inquiry. And as a manager, I reviewed the reports of 12 investigators and again analyzed myself and ensured that the evidence supported what they were recommending, either a board, no board of inquiry. Looking at that November 24th meeting where they decided in their wisdom to eliminate internet voting, it's quite clear to me there were violations of the Ontario Rights Code. Kathy Keene with age, she mentioned that all you people here are too old to understand how to operate a computer. And certainly, it's on this report, there's verbatim transcripts of what they stated, okay? And you're welcome to read it and why I came to conclude that I needed to file 2 complaints with the Human Rights Tribunal of Ontario. Anyways, and there's been 4 other named respondents, including the mayor, Kathy Keene, D'Souza, and Scott. The reasons they put forward were not justified reasons. They were contrived excuses for elimination. The reason behind all that is the mayor wanted to suppress a segment of the voting population. That's what's gone on here, and I speak the truth when I say those things. Again, it's supported by the evidence in that report. Again, you're all welcome to read it or request it. But that's, again, having worked for the Ontario Race Commission for 10 years, again, I know there's been bullying certainly gone on that council by rages of bullying at the time by D'Souza and particularly Kathy Keene. This is the reality. Sorry, Jack. Sorry, Jack. I'm going to leave it up for another 30 seconds, Jack.
Okay, just to... Just a quick follow-up, though, to make sure that you answer the question for the person that did answer it. For Bill 5, with just a yes or no, because I don't want Jack to get angry. His shoulder, I can feel it. He's feeling it in there. Just a yes or no, would or would you not support that
Absolutely.
bill? Okay, thank you. All right, Michaela?
So I am not familiar with Bill 5, but I am committed to reading about it this evening, learning about it, and I would love to provide a response to folks on if I would be supportive of it or not once I have the opportunity to read what it's all about. With that being said, I would like to share with you that values that are important to me are love your neighbor as yourself, treat others the way that you should be treated. I believe that every person matters, that every resident in this community matters. That is why I'm running, because I care about this community, and I want to ensure that your voice is reflected in our democratic process here in Oro-Medonte. I'm committed to working together with residents, with businesses, with people who are part of this community to continue to build community where everyone feels safe, welcomed, and valued. And I am dedicated to unity on council, if elected, and working with whoever is elected to work towards ensuring that Oro-Medonte continues to be a vibrant place to live, raise a family, work, and play. Thank you.
Okay, that concludes that question. The next one, like you, John, I was an educator. Well, you still are. I used to be an educator, so I enjoy when someone has really nice penmanship so I don't have to go, what are they trying to say? Okay, so this one is to all candidates again, and the question is, if elected to council, what improvements to the operation of council and to the interaction of staff with all councillors would you make? So basically, what would you do to make council work better, and how would you improve interactions with staff and councillors? We're going to start at the far right end of the table with our Ward 1 candidate. So you'll go first. I'll do all the ward candidates, and then Randy, you can go at the end. Okay?
I believe that a collaborative approach is best. I believe that the council needs to be a well-oiled machine, and we need to work together. We do represent the entirety of Oro-Medonte, and so collaboratively, I think it's very important that we work together. We utilize the township staff to educate us on specific issues. And I think it's our responsibility to reach out to the residents and find out and listen to you of what is important to you. We represent you as council, we serve you, and we represent you.
May I ask for you just to reread the question so I'm clear?
Absolutely. I'll reread it, but I think we might need a little bit of rewording. But if elected to council, what improvements to the operation of council and to the interaction of staff with all councillors would you make? So essentially, how would you improve the operation of council, and how would you improve the interaction of staff with all councillors?
Great, thank you for that. Well, I have addressed this already in my comments with regard to what an effective governing body needs to do in order to operate. So I won't go over that again, but as far as some efficiencies I can see can be built in, there's a lot of formalities that we have at council right now, just in passing motion, through the mayor to the person you're speaking to. That slows the process down. I think we can modernize some of the language and some of the procedures that will build some efficiency in to the use of time for council. I also would say that, respectfully with staff, there needs to be an acknowledgement that, we have expertise on staff, and from time to time I will see they will take a staff recommendation, but then often I will see times where that recommendation will be tossed aside and a councillor will feel that their idea is the best idea and that's what needs to be approved. I think there needs to be a greater level of communication and respect for staff recommendations, but at times respectfully challenging those as well through questioning and through discussion and dialogue, and then coming to an agreement instead of just having a lone idea being accepted by the body of the council. And that's what I could see at this point. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, John to you, then Michaela, and then we'll finish with Robert for the ward councils.
Okay, so to make council work better, just to go in with an open mind, listen to council members. We've all talked about listening to residents and seeking input, but we have to listen to each other and be willing to work together. Some points have been made about listening to staff and taking the recommendations. Of course, the people that have been working there, I would go into each vote as an independent vote. There's no strings attached to it. There's no grudges after a vote if you don't win. You have to treat each vote independently. I'm all for the idea of streamlining. That sounds like making things faster, so I could go for that. But as an educator, there's so many different stories out there and so many different backgrounds and opinions and values, and we have to be mindful of being inclusive of everybody and respectful for each person. And I would take that and I practice that and I believe that, and that's what I would bring to council.
As I shared earlier, one of my key priorities is collaboration. And I have had the honor and opportunity to be a part of many tables where diverse voices were represented. Just to name a few, I sat on the Community Safety Council at York University. I was a part of an academic task force where faculty members who, reflected different disciplines were at a table together, and we had to examine multi-million-dollar budgets, and we had to determine program evaluation. And, we would come to the table with all different experiences, knowledge, expertise, but at the end of the day, we had to work towards consensus. I currently have different teams that I lead. I'm the chair of a steering committee for a charity we're trying to launch in the community. And so I have backgrounds and experiences in working with people who have different points of view and learning to respect them by listening actively. I also think it's important to continue learning from one another. Like, I've learned so much from the folks who are here today and what they've shared, and it's important to continue learning and to not be afraid to admit when you're wrong. I think what I would bring to council is humility and to acknowledge that, sometimes I'm going to be wrong, I'm imperfect, and I'm not going to be right on everything, but I will do my best to lead with integrity, to build trust, to build relationships with the town staff that are meaningful, to build relationships with the fellow elected councilors if I am elected, to ensure that those relationships are built so that we can work together towards a common goal, to find consensus, to build community, and help ensure that Oro-Medonte continues to be the great place that we all enjoy and live in. Thank you.
Could you paraphrase that question for me again?
Sure.
Given what you're earning tonight.
Yeah, no worries. Basically, how would you improve the operation of council, and how would you improve the interaction of staff with council?
Well, I'd start by getting rid of all current council. With the exception of Councillor Greenlaw, who's currently running for mayor, of course, and I certainly support him. And listen, I've last 4 years looked at objectively at council, and I'm no different than any of you here. I just happen to be sitting up here running for council, but I've looked at it objectively, and again, I'm a bit of a straight shooter, I guess, and I believe the names that I named tonight need to be named, okay? You people need to know what the hell's going on down there, okay, at council. And for those of you that don't monitor or watch many council meetings, that is what is going on. There's a lot of bullying down there. So the elimination of all of those council members, including the mayor, down, D'Souza, Keane, and Scott, would certainly improve the working environment down there. What you're going to get from me and the people that I know that are running here, including Michaela here, is honesty and a lot of common sense. I'm just going to say this because it needs to be said. The time I've watched council meetings down there, I used to refer to two councillors on council as the pillars of integrity of that council, given where they sat on the outside, looking in sort of thing. And those councillors, one of them is sitting right there in the front, Councillor Veach. And the other pillar of integrity is Randy Graham right there. These men never gave up their personal integrity during the 4 years that I witnessed them. They were the only two that would object to the mayor on issues that they believed in. And I think that's something you should take to a voting booth when you go to vote for a mayor. And I say that, again, objectively. I could be sitting out there tonight, but having watched meetings, like I said, I have the greatest respect for these two men, and I'm sure that those who have watched council meetings have as well. They retain their dignity, they retain their integrity, and there was three that gave up their personal integrity for the mayor, and that's the truth. That's facts, and you only have to look at who voted in the last 4 years to support the mayor. I think about 98% of the votes that were voted by Keane, D'Souza, and Scott were with the mayor always, as predetermined as he influenced and hijacked. Oh, I'm gone, okay.
I can almost feel Jack's sigh. It's like, okay, Robert, your turn. He just knows that shoulder's going to be aching at the end. All right, Mr. Greenlaw. Yeah, you could switch arms, Jack. That might work. Mr. Greenlaw, this is your question to finish up here.
Thank you. If I am as fortunate to win this election and be elected as your mayor to serve you, I will lead and take care of this problem by leading with example. I will have an open door, open phone line, open internet line policy for all staff, council, and the public. And I will enforce policy and the code of conduct equally across the board and extinguish any disrespect that an employee, staff member, or member of the public does upon anyone within the township and vice versa. So at the end of the day, I really believe if we come together and we communicate openly, we can find the solution and we can get rid of this toxic environment we're currently in.
Thank you, candidates. Now for the candidates in Ward 2 and Ward 6, you can have a little bit of a nap if you want, because this question doesn't go to you guys. This is for Randy, for the mayoral candidate, as well as for Zoe and Lori, and it's specific to a Ward 1 issue. The question is, why can't the residents of Diamond Valley Drive get any action support from Oro-Medonte to force the builder and the developer to clean up their construction debris and finish paving the road? We are given the same line over and over that they are aware of the situation and will clean it up, but nothing is happening. So I'm assuming the question, Randy might have some context about why nothing has happened, but the question, it seems to me, is what would you do? How would you fix this? And what would happen with Diamond Valley Drive if we had some enforcement here? So we'll start with Lori, then I'll go to Zoe, and then, sorry, just luck of the draw. My little head spins the thing. It's your name came up. So we'll do Lori, Zoe, and then we'll finish with Randy.
Great. Well, it's a great question, and obviously it's of concern to the folks that are living around Diamond Valley Drive. I'm not familiar with who the contractor is at this point, but what I can see, obviously, is there needs to be communication with the contractor and an agreement as to what's going to happen. I do believe that the township has some flex in order to force the contractor, if needed, to clean up this particular issue. And I would push hard for that to happen if the contractor was not taking care of it within an allotted period of time. And I would use the effort of the township to make sure that that would happen.
Thank you. Zoe?
I believe with this community and with others that the onus does come back on the developer. And I do think that there should be some stipulations and better communications, putting a bit of the onus back on the developer that they are responsible for these areas and to maintain it to a certain level. I do believe that if I am elected into that position, that this is a concern. I do think that the developers need to do their due diligence and maintain and upkeep the areas or the communities in which they are developing. And I think that the people of Diamond Valley have a very valid complaint, and I would absolutely represent them with their complaints.
Thank you.
Yep, there. Is that okay? Well, I'm not sure if we've taken over the road. It'd be a lot of it would have to do with whether we've taken over the services of the road from it. So until that happens, because when developers go in, they have to bring the road level up to a certain service level before we will take over the responsibility. Because we do have some private roads within this township that don't fall under our jurisdiction. So I think it would be partly for the residents association there to lobby to try and put some pressure on them, and then bring it to council, and if we can engage to see if we can help push the issue forward and bring a conclusion.
Thank you. Okay, we're drawing near to the end of the questions here, but this one is for everybody, so the people at the table, sprite yourself back up again. Robert, get ready to give Jack a hard time. This one is regarding agriculture. Agriculture is the #1 value-added sector in the province. The public supports local food production. If elected, how will you enhance the local food movement? And how will you move towards establishing an abattoir in this township? And how will you announce the timeline of your initiatives? So I'll read that one more time.
Yes, please.
If elected, how will you enhance the local food movement? And how will you move towards establishing an abattoir in this township? And how will you announce the timeline for your initiatives? Okay?
Could you define food movement? Is that what I heard there?
Yeah, a local food movement, I would assume we're talking about local food production, local food systems. How would you encourage local food being produced here, consumed here, distributed here, that sort of thing.
Yeah,
It's not your turn yet, just letting you know. Was there anybody else who needs clarification on the question?
You may want to help them with the abattoir.
Oh, okay. Yep, no, absolutely. That's a good point. For those that aren't aware, an abattoir is like a slaughterhouse.
yes, I'm aware of that.
Okay, well, it just, maybe some people don't. I don't know. Trying to make it even for everybody. So for this question, I'm actually going to start with you, Randy, if that's okay. We'll do our mayoral candidate first.
So reread the question.
Yes, I'll reread the question. Now I'm getting the hard time. If elected, how will you enhance the local food movement? And how will you move towards establishing an abattoir in this township? And how would you announce the timeline for your initiatives? So basically, what are you going to do to promote local food? How are you going to ensure an abattoir gets set up within our township boundaries? And how are you going to announce those initiatives? That's the question. It's a three-parter, Robert, so it's still only a 2-minute timeline. I'm just letting you know.
The question's been longer than 2 minutes.
I'm sorry, I'm doing the best I can here. There's no time limit on me.
You're up.
All right. So we'll start with you, Randy, and then we'll go to our ward candidates.
Okay. Very good question. Very, very tough question. But a lot of it has to do with an abattoir on why they're not here or they're not is a business model, and whether or not there's a sustainability for someone to have one locally. They used to have them around here much more, and so that may be impacted by the higher food. I'm trying to remember the Food and Drug Board regulations that you have to adhere to. So from cleaning and stuff, you look at back up when the Maple Leaf had their tainted meat plant shut down. So I think maybe it's become much tougher from a business model to maintain an abattoir on a small scale. And as we see in all corporations, mergers and acquisitions, if you don't go really big, you can't survive competitively. Moving the food production around is something that I would say I'm not an expert at, but I would say you would have to engage OMAFRA and see how they would work with you and other governing agencies. But I will give whoever's question that was, and I think I know where it came from, kudos for playing stump the potential council.
I think I'll start with you, Robert, just for fun.
Just for fun, Michaela's agreed to give me her 2 minutes, okay? Listen, the first thing that occurs to me is farm markets, but the bigger issue is obvious is to meet with the farmers. I don't know enough about it to how to increase the distribution of food and all that, but again, the experts on it are the farmers themselves. I'm not going to sit here and pretend I know what the hell I'm talking about on this issue here. But I think you know where my thoughts are and support our farmers. Anybody that pulled in tonight saw my white truck out there with farmer support families. And that's where my heart is. That's where my thoughts are with the farm community. I'm very respectful of it, the farmers themselves. I know I'm somewhat getting away from the question here as much as I can. but just, what time is it now, Jack? Oh, jeez. I'm going to give that minute back to Michaela. But, I live next to a farm. He's a cattle farmer. And he takes the takes the hay off my farm. But just something aside there, other than not knowing a lot about it at this point in time, is I have a lot of respect for farmers' wives, and they're not mentioned enough, in my view. Okay, they're very much an integral part of farming operation. I think every farmer here, male farmer, would agree with that. And if you check on my website on Monday, you'll see a bit of a tribute that I wrote to farmers' wives. That it's there, and that comes from my heart. So, okay.
All right, thank you. Michaela, do you want to take John or Robert's extra 20 seconds, or?
Potentially, we'll see how it goes.
No, you won't. No, you won't.
Well, first, as I'm thinking about this question, and I'll acknowledge I don't know a lot about this particular area, but if this is a question brought forward to a resident that's here tonight, that means it's important to a resident that's here tonight. And if this is a question that continues to come up on the campaign trail, as I've mentioned, I'm writing down everything folks are sharing with me. And so if this becomes a key issue and a priority for our community, for Oro-Medonte, why not have a consultation with folks who are saying that this is important, to hear what they have to say and doing the research to see what is required? Because I do think that this resident's question matters and is important, and although I don't have an answer on how I would particularly address their concern, I think it's important to hear what folks have to say in our community. With that being said, along similar lines, I was talking to one individual who is a farmer for his livelihood, and he was sharing with me about how, you know, as more and more residential areas are popping up and the road limits are dropping, that's actually impacting the time he can to deliver food in the area and deliver his produce to different areas. So that's just an interesting perspective that he was sharing with me that I thought was really thoughtful. So I think that there's many angles that we can look at when addressing this question, but also something that I've included in my platform is something that I would like to see in the township is community gardens. I think building community gardens throughout the township would be a great way to build connection between residents, but also to address potential food insecurity issues in the future. So with that being said, I think that together we could work towards building connection and community here in Oro-Medonte. Thank you.
How much time does she have left?
What did you say, Robert?
I said, how much time does she have left?
We're just going to add it to the end, and whatever's left over, Zoe, you get all of that time. All right, John.
Okay, so I'll reiterate that this is something that would need a little bit more research for sure. It is important that we do reduce our food footprint and that 100-mile or 160 kilometer diet, or whatever you want to call it, and involving more local farmers. And I'm just wondering, and I would like to find out where this question came from so that I could have these conversations, because like I said earlier, I'm the fourth generation that grew up that's raising my family on the farm, and my great-grandparents took the horses out onto the lake. They cut the ice blocks, put it in the sawdust, and sold that to the cottagers. And I grew up, I've actually been to a slaughterhouse, for a lack of a better, to clarify things, as a child, and I went there regularly. I harvested vegetables with my mother, who was a farmer's wife, in the gardens in the afternoon, and we sold to local cottagers. And it's a very romantic idea, and I would love to say that, yeah, but I just wonder if it's sustainable and whether people would lose interest in that. So it does need, it's a great conversation to have, and I'm sorry I'm not more prepared for this, but we do need to talk about it, because it would be great to reduce our food footprint and get back to our farming roots here, but we have to be careful that we don't set people up for something that isn't sustainable. So I need to spend more time thinking about that, but it does bring back a lot of memories for me. So thanks.
All right, Lori, and then Zoe to finish.
Yeah. So Robert, my dad was the general manager for the Farmers Cooperative in Barrie. And when I was a kid, I'd come out on calls to Oro at the time with him. And I loved hanging around in dairy barns. And I said to my dad, I want to be a farmer's wife. So didn't work out that way. But this is a really interesting question to me, because as I mentioned earlier, I'm doing my EMBA, and my stream is actually social enterprise leadership. And I just spent 3 days out on Fogo Island in Newfoundland 2 weeks ago. And that if you know the story of Fogo, it's all about social enterprise. The fishermen there were decimated with the cod collapse. And they did something very unique. Each village on the island of Fogo was not connected by a road. This is in the late 60s, early 70s. They had to get to each other's villages by boat. All of a sudden, nobody had cod to fish anymore, and they were going to be transported off the island to another part of Newfoundland. Well, the communities actually came together and started, and someone started going to each community asking, do you see a solution to this problem? And every single unconnected community came up with the same solution. And they created a fishing cooperative where they took, they decided, well, they couldn't fish cod anymore, so they started to fish other fish around Fogo, and it became very productive for them. And when I think about Oro-Medonte, and I think about the agriculture that we have here today, what is that going to look like tomorrow? What's that going to look like in 20 or 30 years? Can we sustain the way agriculture is today? We don't know what that's going to look like. I actually think that this is a great question from a social enterprise aspect, in that it gets people thinking about what other solutions we can have for food security, but maintaining our agriculture in some form or another here in Oro-Medonte. So I can't speak about slaughterhouses. I have no idea. And timeline, wouldn't be able to give you a timeline either. Thank you.
All right, Zoe?
If I understand the question correctly, I'm thinking that you're asking what we would do to promote local,
Yeah, that's a big part of it.
local food movement. I think it's a great question because I do support local food. I have a Facebook page that supports local businesses, and our farmers are a part of our locality. And I take a lot of pride in supporting McNiven Farms. I used to work at Eagle Farms. This weekend, we have the Oro World Fair. We can support our farmers by going out to the World Oro Fair and meeting our farmers and seeing exactly what they are doing in our community. We have a tremendous amount of food available to us right here in Oro-Medonte, and it is not any more expensive than going to the grocery store, and it is local. I think that if we support our farmers, we are actually protecting our farmlands in our wards here, and that is a concern of our local communities, is how are we going to protect our farmlands? How we protect our farmlands is by supporting our farmers, and it's up to us to do it.
Well, folks, I'm sure for those of you that have watches, you'll see we're past our 9 o'clock timeline. So that was, we saved the hardest question to the end to just see how many of them could tap dance, right? Thank you to the audience for being so gracious and allowing me to be the moderator tonight. Thank you for the candidates, except for Robert, for making it easy on me. And so nothing personal. Thank you, Jack, for... Thank you to ERUM for having me, and for the service that you did for the community tonight to allow us all to come here and gather and hear more from these wonderful public citizens. So I'll hand it over to Linda to close out, and thank you, everybody.
Thank you. I'm used to having a podium, so I'm gonna, okay, Mike, thank you. My back's getting sore.
It does come out of there.
I thought so, but I didn't want to break it. All right, thank you. I just wanted to say thank you to everyone. I know that Margaret's thanked everyone, but it's an extra special one from me and from all the volunteers that put this evening together. Both evenings, we had one on Tuesday and again on Thursday. I would like to thank our volunteers, your volunteers that have helped put this on this evening. I'd also like to thank the candidates. I would not want to be in any of their chairs. This is a really tough thing to do, and I think they all did remarkably well, and so why don't we give them a hand, all of them. Oh, okay. Housekeeping issue, had a set of keys that were found. They will be at the front desk. If you recognize them, anyone, they have a little shark, I think, on them. It's actually, no, it's a fish, okay, Fogle Island fish. Anyhow, they're there, okay? I also just wanted to thank Margaret especially. Margaret, I think you did a fabulous job. You've been... We have a little token of our appreciation for you. You're very welcome. We took you away from your family for 2 evenings and over the dinner hour, so this might actually just help to make up for it, so thank you. I'd also like to thank Jack. I don't know that you can put your arm up anymore, but next time I think, Jack, you need to bring a hockey stick. I really do. Okay, and Jack, thank you very much for as well. That'll, for medicinal purposes. Okay. Okay. All right. Well, thank you, guys. I hope everyone's had a really good evening. I hope you found this worthwhile coming to. I know our candidates have offered to stay around for a short period of time if you've got questions. If you're concerned about your question not being asked, we ran out of time. We had amazing questions. We'll try and get answers for you. Just please come and see me, and we'll try and figure out how to get to the answers for you. Okay? I'm getting tired too. Okay, everyone. Thank you very much. We're going to call it a night.
Hi, my name is Ryan Cardwell, and I'm running for the position of councillor for Ward 6 in the Township of Oro-Medonte. I'd like to thank Rogers TV for extending me the opportunity to speak with you since I was unable to attend the EROM candidates debate. I am a proud family man, and my roots are here in the Simcoe County area. Born in Midland, I and my family have lived in the east end of Barrie for the last 30 years before moving to Moonstone in November. Making the move was definitely the right choice for myself, my wife Tanya, and our 2 boys. People have asked me why I'm running for council. What pushes me? Being a representative for people in my home area is the ultimate give back for me. Through different avenues, I've been involved with charitable endeavors for a good chunk of my adult life, through giving back to the food bank, Out of the Cold, and others. This is the next step. This is my ultimate give back, is to give the people a voice that they so deeply deserve. Residents of Ward 6 have made things abundantly clear in my time at the doors. They are excited for someone local representing them, and they are excited to be heard and given a voice again. My biggest goal once on council is to increase the lines of communication between residents and the rest of Oro-Medonte. I intend to host town halls where I'll bring in the mayor and myself and give residents an opportunity to voice their concerns as well as any questions they may have. I also intend on having bi-monthly e-newsletters to get information into the hands of residents, both through policy changes and ongoing things in Oro-Medonte as well as in Ward 6. The last part of my communication will be continuing to knock on doors. One thing that has been made clear by many people is that they want to see elected politicians not once every 4 years. My intention is to continue to knock on doors to make sure that you are happy both with my job as well as the job of council. You won't see me every other 4 years like every other politician. For more about me and what plans that I have, please visit cardwellforward6.ca. That's Cardwell, the number 4, Ward, the number 6.ca. Thank you very much for your time, and I look forward to seeing you at the doors.
call the Rogers TV viewer response line. Email us or connect with us on social media.
Think it's okay to drive high? Think again. Drug-impaired driving is as illegal as drunk driving, and in Ontario, the penalties are the same. If police suspect you're driving under the influence of drugs of any